And welcome to this week's Roll of 24 for the week of 29 June to 5 July 2026. And so once again, this is an eclectic week of photographs that I took throughout the entire week period. And one of the ones that I was working on this week was my purposeful picture, which was I was using the Canon R6m2 that has a filter function in it, and I chose the fisheye, and I wanted to see how these turned out. So that was that's my purposeful picture for the week. And you'll see in the presentation the strawberry moon, but after I finished capturing the strawberry moon, this house was right across from where I was photographing at, and so I took a fisheye photograph of that. As I mentioned, I did on Monday the 29th of June, I went out and captured the strawberry moon just west of a small town called Kempner, Texas. Later in the week, lovely bride and I went down to the town of Belton, and I thought this was just an interesting mural. Do I have that correctly? Yes, I do. And so the sun was coming up, and it was bright on one side and not so much on the other side. And I thought that was a very interesting mural. Captured this gentleman sitting outside of the antique store that lovely bride was in. And I shot these from the hip. I didn't want to be obvious. And that's why the camera is pretty much at the angle of the gentleman sitting there. Also went over to a small park over there in Belton. I'd never been before, and they had plenty of geese and squirrels and birds running around, and lovely bride and I sat out there and enjoyed a cup of coffee and some breakfast. And I just captured this little squirrel was sitting there. There's about 5 or 6 different squirrels out there, and this one was probably 10 or 15 feet away from where we were at, and just sitting there and enjoying its own breakfast. And so this is week 26. We're halfway through the year for these roll of 24s. And as I mentioned, I was playing with the Canon EOS R6m2 that has this filter profiles in it. There's 5 or 6 different ones. I've showed several in the past. Anyway, so it had this fisheye feature, and I was curious to know what it did and how it operated. And so here's Charlie in the office. Took this photograph, processed it, sent it off to the family, and one of my sons came back and says, yeah, it looks like Charlie's sitting in the airplane window. So it's pretty interesting, and I'll talk about this feature as we go along, as we look at some of the images I captured. And so as Charlie and I were heading over to the dog park, because I had this great concept and idea, and you'll see it in the next image, was to lay down on the ground and aim upwards into a tree where the sun was coming up. But on our way over there, I saw the city employee out there cutting the grass between 2 different businesses, 2 different roads. And so got out, switched over to a bigger lens, got the 70 to 200, went through, turned on the feature, and this was a learning experience because this turns it into a JPEG, and all the auto features are actually turned off. So I had to switch over to everything was manual to do this. So Charlie and I got out there to the dog park. This is the Colleen Dog Park. And I used this same tree in a previous one where I meshed the tree and a dog into the image. So I thought that this would be a great tree to try this out. Now I'm using the RF 10 to 20 f4 lens. And so I actually had to turn this up to, I believe, f22 in order to capture the sunburst coming through. So laid down on the ground. Charlie was the only one out there, so I didn't have to worry about getting dogpiled by other dogs. And laid down and practiced trying to figure out how to shoot up with this fisheye effect still on. And so after I'd finished taking the images of the tree with the fisheye and the 10 to 20, some other dogs did decide to come over into the park. And as you can see, this is a first time for Charlie to play with these. new dogs here. He did pretty good. Got a little excited. I was kind of nervous for a while there to see if he was going to be overly aggressive. He barked a lot, but everything turned out very well in the end. And so at this point, the Charlie and these other new dogs have been playing around for a while, and I was still out there. I'd captured the videos, and so I was still laying down on the ground, and the dogs were pretty much leaving me alone and stuff. And I was like, it was hard to anticipate the dogs. They spent, after they'd roughed house for a while, they spent a lot of time in the shades and shadows, and like this darker colored black dog, when they sit down in the shade, it's really hard to capture them, and let alone come in and do any post-processing. But I got fortunate enough that here Charlie and one of these dogs was standing over near the picnic tables, and I just love how they got framed in these poles. So welcome to Roll of 24. This is Monday 4th, and Charlie and I are out here trying to capture the strawberry moon. Say hello, Charlie. That's a good head nod. All right. So we are out here just west of Kempner, Texas, at a, what's that say over there? Central Texas Arena grounds. So we've got the camera set up. Once again, we've got the R6 Mark II that's going to do a moon streak for 25 minutes. We've got the R5 Mark II that is going to do a video, because we only do 30 minutes with, well, we can do longer with the 2, but we only do about 25 minutes worth of video. And then we have over here the R5, and it's going to do the exposure bracketing, 7 exposures every 36 seconds. So we can stitch those back together over in Lightroom. So unlike last month when Charlie and I went out to shoot the blue moon out there in Enchanted Rock, we had a lot of clouds and everything else, and the only picture I got was with the cell phone. So the only thing out here is, they say the Saharan dust from Africa is supposed to be clouding the sky, but I don't see anything. The sky's been pretty good. So if there is any Saharan dust, then that'll be interesting. So I've attached the photo pills also in here. Let me get my finger up here. According to photo pills, it's supposed to come right over here, but according to the information inside of photo pills, it says it's rising at 122, and so normally by the time I see it, it's probably at 125, maybe 126, so it's got a shallow arc this time of year, so it should be going over that way. Whoops, don't need to zoom in on my face. So hopefully we'll see what we got. Charlie's listening to some cows right now. There were some coyotes earlier. They were way far to our southwest. So anyways, we're going to cut it here, and I'll bring you back when we get the moon coming up. Well, we finally got some moonrise, and it was totally off. It came up at about 130 degrees. We got somebody passing by behind us. So there we are right there. I guess it's the people who live behind me. So we have it over there. So we've got everything up and running. Once again, we got the R6 Mark II doing a moon streak. We've got the middle one doing the R5 Mark II doing a video. And then we have the R5 doing a 7 frame. So we'll see how much bigger this thing gets. Looks pretty big. I'll zoom it in there. It's hard to focus on it, I guess. So far we've got pretty good success. It's not a very big moon. It's the strawberry moon here on June 29th, and it's now 10 minutes after 9 in the evening. Well, it's now 9:25 and we're finishing up the moon streak, which is going to be, we already finished the video, so we are currently at 20 minutes. We're going to give that a few more seconds. And we're over here on the R5. Oops, just turned off. And so here's zoom in, and there is our strawberry moon. And let's see if we can go down here and find Charlie. Charlie did real well tonight. Just a couple animals, a couple coyotes. He was really excited about all the cows that were out here. So this is the strawberry moon, and we'll see how it turns out in post-processing. Thank you for watching. And so here is the image from the Canon R5 that was doing 7 frames every 30 seconds. Got back home next day, put them into Photoshop, put all of the moons in there. There were 53 images, and went in and deleted every, well, I kept one, deleted 4, kept one, deleted 4. I just like having just a little bit of overlap in these type of sequential images out there from the strawberry moon rising. And you can see here, this was with the 200 to 800 all the way at 250. I used F11 because it's a moonrise, and that's what I always use. And so here, this is a sped up. It's at 200% time of the strawberry moon rising. Once again, I was just west of the small little town of Kempner, Texas. And as you can see, it gets darker and darker. There's a couple times where I try and get in there and make minor adjustments by increasing the ISO, and you can actually hear them, but in the end I just let it go, and the moon gets washed out with the settings that were there. I should have decreased the ISO, but I did not. And here is, I do a moon streak also, and every opportunity I can get. And so this is with the Canon R6 Mark II. I use that one because it's a 24 megapixel camera, but also because I've figured out how to put it in bulb mode and just touch the back screen in order for it to start the capture, and then I can monitor it throughout. And once again, I said earlier about the Sahara dust, and I think it was pretty prevalent in the end, because normally these moon streaks are a lot brighter than what's projected here. So I think the Sahara dust interfered a little bit. So there is the strawberry moon behind me, but this week for a roll of 24, and I've got a car coming. But anyways, there's a house right across the street from where I'm at, where I was taking the pictures. And this week my purposeful picture is to use the R6 Mark II and the fisheye feature that's inside of it. So I've packed everything up, and I'm going to go ahead and take a fisheye picture of that house right across the street from me. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. And so here is, I put on the 50 millimeter, the Canon 50, and I like this one because it's good for low light visibility at the f1.2. And I'm not sure if I like this one better than the Tractor, but at least I feel at the end I was a success capturing various images using that fisheye feature inside of the Canon R6 Mark II. That feature is not available in my R5 or R5 Mark II, but it is here. And I just thought it was pretty cool. Like I said, this was right behind where I was photographing the strawberry moon, so I didn't have to go anywhere. I just took out the tripod and camera and took care of business. So during this week, I was out in the town of Belton, and I was in a position where I was at while the wife was inside this government office taking care of some of her business. And I was out there in the parking lot, and I saw this water tower. And I've seen this tower before. I'd captured it before, but it was on a cloudy day, and the sun was just coming through. So while Lovely Bride was inside, I pulled out the camera and captured these images, or this image, of the water tower. And I was like, I see a lot of water towers when I'm out west. And so I'm actually going to start a new series for the next year as I travel around Texas capturing water towers. So after Lovely Bride finished her business inside that governmental office, we were still hungry. We hadn't eaten breakfast yet. So we headed over to the actual town of Belton, which was probably about 4 or 5 miles away from where we were at. And we stopped and picked up some pastries and some coffee. And we went over to this park that has a bunch of ducks that are very used to humans. And this image of these 3 geese are probably all of maybe 10, 15 feet away from us. And they really didn't care about us at all. And I just thought this was really interesting. And what I did is I took out all the color in the foreground, and I thought it was pretty cool. And as I mentioned, so we're sitting there, and I capture the geese, and they're still somewhere over to the left-hand side of this. But I have 1 or 2 squirrels in my yard, but there were just 5 or 6 squirrels coming down. And over here it's a picnic table. And so it was just really enjoyable just sitting there. Well, it was enjoyable watching them because, one, they're not in my yard, they're over here. And just watching them scamper around and do their thing. And then the doves. Now, those are pigeons. Anyways, I thought it was pretty cool and captured a couple of them in flight and out of flight. So just really nice, relaxing morning. So after capturing the birds and squirrels, you can see one of the squirrels on this tree. I didn't even know I captured it because my focus was on the maintenance workers in their green truck trying to capture them right there in the V of the opening. And I think I did a pretty good job of this one. And so there's a little zoomed in there. So it was just funny that squirrel just plastered along the right-hand side of the tree right there. But so yeah, these maintenance workers came through, and all the squirrels and birds scurried away. And after this, I started looking around the park to see what humans and what else there was to photograph while we enjoyed our coffee. And this little squirrel here is really persistent because he was sitting up there, he or she was sitting up there eating their own breakfast before the maintenance workers came through and everybody scurried away. And then shortly after that truck left, it came back and sat up there. And what was just so amazing, I was trying to take a picture in the landscape mode, but its tail was just so long that I ended up having to go to the portrait mode. And when we go back out, get out of zoom here, you'll see just how long that tail is. I've never seen a squirrel with a tail that's that long. Normally it's their body length, but that looks like a body length and a half. And just really cute little squirrel sitting there. So Lovely Bride and I were finishing up our breakfast, and I was just getting a little sore sitting there at that metal park bench. And so I got up and went over to this little stream that is between it and another government building across the way. And these ducks were maybe about 5 to 8 feet away from me. Once again, they're pretty, I don't want to say they're domesticated, but they're used to humans being around. And it was just a joy trying to capture them. I just thought this was so cute. They were all just idling along, doing their little, well, I wouldn't call it a breastplate, but maybe it is. But just really cute. And originally, I did not see this gentleman coming, and Lovely Bride pointed him out. Hey, there's somebody coming on a bike. Quick, pick up the camera, because I thought I was pretty much done. And I probably took about 30 pictures of this gentleman, riding his bike along the path, and just beautiful capture in my opinion. Got the angles there, got him focused looking down the road, because I don't really like it when they turn their heads and look at me while I'm taking the picture of them. So just very interesting photograph. And once again, lovely bride keeps her eyes out for me when I'm busy trying to look at something else. And so after we left the park, we still had about an hour to go before lovely bride had to go back to that other government office to turn in some paperwork. And it had been a couple years since we'd actually gone down and walked around downtown Belton. This is the Bell County Courthouse, which is centrally located. And I know it was built back in 18 something or other, early 1800s. Anyways, so I thought this was pretty good. I turned on I changed out my lens to a 24 millimeter because I really like using that for street photography, especially in this town, where if I ran into some murals, I wanted to make sure I had something that I could capture everything. Anyways, just beautiful clouds that day in order to capture these photographs. So while lovely bride was in a couple antique stores, there was two, one on the street that's way in front of us and then one right behind where I'm at. So the deal was, okay, I need at least 30, 45 minutes to walk around and see what there is to photograph. And, of course, she went into the antique stores to peruse the selection. And I just passed by this building. It's not an old rustic building. It looks rather modernized. And I just loved how bright the sun was reflecting, and the cars in the street were reflected off the glass. I thought it was just a really nice, minimalistic street view of one of the streets in Belton, Texas. Once again, I just love the coloring of this one. And so I turned around and walked maybe 2-3 more storefronts and looked across the street, and this is a movie theater, the Beltonian. And like I said, this was the week for the 4th of July coming up, and evidently they had a movie coming. And now this is not as modern as the building I just showed you, though I just loved how the coloring and everything reflected here. And sometimes I wish I could go out back at night. I just never get around to going back out at night and reshoot the same images. Maybe I'll do that in the future, or I'll spend a whole week doing night photography of previously day photography items. And here I was fortunate to finally find a mural down here in the city of Belton. In a previous roll of 24, I toured downtown Killeen, and I had 5 or 6 big murals on buildings. And this was the only one that I found in my journey up and down 3 or 4 different streets, going up and down in about 3 blocks east and west, and then 3 blocks north and south. And I just really liked how they did this mural. They took this building, took the corner, and put it in there like that. And it's military theme in honor of Fort Hood, most likely, which is just right down the street, about 29 miles away. Really nice, colorful. So now you're wondering, why did he include a set of stairs? Because one of the things is, several weeks ago, I had my own personal challenge of angles. And I had the photograph of the gentleman at the dog park with the 2 dogs on the ground and him, so that was making like a triangle and everything else. But it seems like sometimes when I set myself up to do something very purposeful, I really struggle to find what it is to photograph. And so I just thought this was a throwback back to Angle Week, because the angle of the stairs going up and then the hard right turn, 90-degree turn at the top, and then the angle between the handrail and the building. Yeah. So one of the YouTubers that I watch, photographers, is out of England. And one of his things he likes doing is photographing misplaced traffic cones. So I'm always keeping my eye on traffic cones. And I just thought that this one was ironic in a sense that there are 2 traffic cones there that say no parking, and there was only 1 other car just in front of this one in that whole parking lot. So I don't know if these cones belong to the car owner or if they just said phooey and disregarded it. But it was just funny that, no parking, and then here is a car all by itself in a parking lot parked right there. And so after my first couple loops around the town and met up with lovely bride, you can see she has a bag over there in her left hand. And so had found another antique store just down the street here that we're getting ready to take a picture. Well, I'm getting ready to take a picture at. So once again, the sun was really bright, even though there were thick clouds out there. And I had seen our reflections coming on this window that was at a 45-degree angle. And so it's like, hey, let's stop and let me capture a picture of us capturing a picture of us. So I just like the nuance of this reflective picture. And here is that image of the gentleman I mentioned during the introduction. And this is the antique store that the lovely bride is in. And I walked through it, and it wasn't to my taste. So I came out, went down further, found another coffee shop, and walked back. And I looked at my watch, and we still had like 15, 20 minutes before we had to depart for lovely bride's meeting. And this gentleman was sitting there, and I was like, well, I don't want to raise the camera up. I don't want to crouch down. So it's been a while, but I did some shots from the hip. And because I really wasn't sure if I was getting focus and everything, I think I probably shot 100 frames, and I think I got 3 that were good. All right, and try not to get too dizzy here during this video, but I did not like how those pictures had turned out previously of me laying down on the ground. And that was over at the Killeen Dog Park, and now I'm over at another park in the city of Killeen called Long Branch. And it's up in North Killeen, and they had this huge tree up there. And I photographed it about 2 years ago for a sunrise, and I recalled this, and so grabbed Charlie early morning and went up there, and I laid down on the ground. At least I didn't have to worry about any other dogs. And so taking the camera, moving it around, checking different exposure levels. And I love this one. So now we can see it's 12:33. I'm laying down, and I had to move around, as you saw in that video, in order to get the sun to peek just enough over that branch in order to create the sunburst that I was looking for. And it's kind of fatter than what I was looking for, but you take what you can get where you can get it, because by this point I'd already been out there for an hour and a half and getting a little sweaty, and Charlie was getting a little impatient with me taking pictures. And so here is the second of 3 pictures of this tree, and as you see up above, a cloud has now covered up the sun, because here I am laying down for about 4 or 5 minutes trying to create or recreate another sunburst, and I'm like, what is going on? I actually had to move the camera away from the eye because it was very bright. Oh, there's a cloud over the sun. So let's see what we can get here. And I just loved how I was able, this is with a 10 millimeter, 10 to 20 f4. And I shot this at 5.6 because I wanted some good detail further up the tree. Anyways, I just loved how this turned out. And so I presented it here in today's presentation. And I finally finished taking all the shots that I wanted to take underneath the tree. And I was like, you know what? Let's go out here. There was, if you zoom in, you can actually see some kids on the playground. But overall, the park was rather empty. It was almost 1 o'clock, so the temperature was rising. This is July 3rd, so a lot of people getting ready for the 4th of July event tomorrow. And so anyway, so I backed up, and actually I over-backed up because with this 10 to 20, you really got to be kind of close to your subject in order to capture it. And kind of wish I had focused a little bit more to the left to get all of that shadow in there. But in the end, I liked how this was, where you have the shadow on 2/3 of the image, and then the other side is fairly clear. And here is the last picture for this week's roll of 24. It's like 8:02. I told lovely bride I'm going to go out to the fireworks stands and purchase some fireworks. I like to get the little fountains. I got a couple some sparklers and some other items that I can have during the year to incorporate with my photography. And so it's the only time you can really buy them is 4th of July and end of year. And I'd already used up most of those that I bought last for January 1st for New Year's. So I went out there, and of course I have the camera in the trunk of the car, and so I captured these images of people out there purchasing fireworks. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's Roll of 24 for the week of 29 June through 5 July. Please consider subscribing and hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. Now, see you all again next Wednesday. Thank you for watching.